Welcome back, fam, to another episode of Patriotic Art Live with Paul Patriot from the UK.
How are we doing, Donald?
Hey,
Over the other side, over the other side of the Atlantic.
Yes, the other side of the pond. That's a big pond we got here.
Yeah,
I'm doing good. It's so good to be
awesome.
back with
Yeah,
you.
last week there were some technical problems. We struggled to get an actual connection. You know, but
we're back.
We're back. We're back, and we're gonna pick up where we left off, I guess.
Yes, sir. I just thought I'd pull out the old guitar and have a nice little jam session. I might pull that out a little bit later, just for the audience enjoyment. But so the theme of our last show before I was in YouTube jail and these technical problems was surveillance state. And so I have this kind of transhumanist alien-like creature that it's got a kind of, I tend to do a lot of concept art, like I just sort of lean into that. There's so many themes you could touch on the topic of the surveillance state, but this is what I've got here. I want to say hey to two really good friends. We just got Yiz the Eunuch in the house, and on Monday evening, she's got a fantastic show called Discordant Dragons, and I usually do the last Monday of the month. I'm so happy to be a part of that crowd and happy to be a friend of hers. She does great work. Check her out. Maybe you can put your link in the chat. There he is. That'd be cool beans. Hippocratic Oath, one of my best buds, a good follower. She shows up on almost all of my art streams, and we have really fun, intelligent chat. Good to have you. Imperial Crusader is back. It's been a while, my man. So good to have you, brah. Okay, so
awesome.
What's new with you, Mr. Patriarch? What's shaking in your world?
Yeah, it's been well, how long was it since we last streamed? 2 weeks ago?
Well, I'd say more than like 3 weeks.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so we had Eastern Orthodox here, Easter, which was quite nice, a nice experience. Okay.
That's wonderful.
I was going to talk about it a bit last week, but I thought it was just a nice experience from a sort of a homogenous sort of cultural thing, especially being in a village right now. There's like a midnight mass, and then all the town came together, and then
where do you? We went, but you live in you don't live in England right now, though.
Not right now, right? No. We will be going back soon, but we will be just going to hibernate for winter. But yeah, no, it was a good experience. Very community driven, and then sort of going around the village as well with the sort of candles, and yeah, it was just a nice experience.
It's charming.
So yeah, that was that, and
lovely.
Just yeah, business as usual, I did stream last week. Obviously, we tried to get the sound working, but then I ended up having to continue. So I did push my piece here to a more finished, more finished level, and I don't know if you can see on your screen there that it was initially the 15-minute city, and you got the train track, and threw in some cameras, and I thought there's a guy there on the tower who's about to commit sort of. Well, initially the idea would be to commit suicide, or he's going to jump, and take his life or something. And then there's these, like these laser projectors into the air, and then it's the okay to be white message.
That's beautiful. I like how you turned it into a positive there.
Yeah. That kind of just came as I was doing it, really. I thought I need something in this piece to bring it together. People. Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, it still needs a lot of work, really, but you know how it is. It's only as good as the time you commit to it, right?
Right, and the time. I always say that time and energy are the true currency of life. So we don't always have a lot of either. But that's really cool. I had a closer look at that piece recently, and it's super beautiful. I don't know, like, did you use any photo references? Because it's just got a certain something to it that's really, really nice. Maybe you could tell us how you produced that image.
Yeah. Well, the base was taken from. Well, I created the thumbnails designs for a start for the composition, and then I ran the composition through an AI program to build up some of the details from within it.
Nice.
And
Very
then
cool.
it created an additional base, and then from that I just layered it up with other images, like the city in the background. I added to some details, and then some additional bits. This text,
cool.
though, I need to. It's one thing to. It needs to be read by the viewer, but it's being projected outwards, so it technically should be in reverse, if that makes sense. So I
understand. I think I'd like to make a small comment. This is your use of AI is the way it should be used. You know, there's been a lot of discussion in our sphere among the artists about AI and, you know, what does it mean to us? There's certainly a threat to the arts and other industries that AI has, but, you know, our people are sensible enough to figure out, like, that's not really something that we need to, like, fret about, that we can use the tool and enhance our work, or help us to, you know, whatever, get information or whatever the thing is. And I like the way that you used it. I feel like that was a smart and clever way to do it.
Yeah, I try to be, you know, somewhat conscious with it. You know, I don't want to use it to get the end result for me. You know, I just use it as a tool to facilitate certain things. And you know, a couple of weeks ago we were talking. Just want to reiterate this point about AI, how it can improve productivity, and in terms of access to information. Even with writing, for example, you know, and you need to get a lot of reference material. I mean, you can access if you want to prove a point, or you're writing some form of thesis, you can get reference material, literally the click of a button, and you don't have to scroll through like the whole of Google even. So it's gone from like looking up books in libraries to get the exact references, to, you know, going onto Google and doing a Google search, to having AI scan Google for you. So in terms of like, what, you know, building a sort of a cohesive thesis, you know, or it's just the productivity is just through the roof with what you can do.
Right.
So
it helps us expedite what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So if you have a message and you're trying to push something, then I think it can be useful. Definitely.
I agree. I agree. I don't have quite the fears that a lot of people have. I think that there's always a tendency to be sort of like, ooh, the new boogeyman is here, ooh, you know, and everybody get all huffy about it. But, and that's not to say that there aren't dangers or risks or something, this and that. But, you know, I think just be sensible about it, and, you know, use it. You know, I really feel like our people should, you know, we should have like an army of AI guys already. You know, I do know a couple artists that are already on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's really, really cool to see. I always toot the horn of my friends that are doing stuff like that. Like Flash Gorgon from France he's phenomenal. He does really aggressive work with AI, meaning like he'll come up with a concept. I don't, you know, who knows, something in our theme, our movements themes, you know, and then he'll kind of like torture the data, as they say, where, you know, he'll like, you know, let's say maybe it's an image of Thor or Odin or something of this, and then, you know, the fingers he's got like 8 fingers on one hand or something. So then you got to, like, you know, kind of give it the right prompts to make it do what you want it to do, and it's actually pretty time consuming, you know.
Like,
but,
even with even in Photoshop, the latest version, if you've got it, you've got the generative fills and things like that as well, and plus you've got the magic brush tools, which helps you to just remove things instantly. So can definitely improve your workflow.
I've been thinking about getting like upgrading and getting like a nice new tablet. The iPad has a new tablet out that is like ridiculously high powered. You can do everything, music, video. It's an entire studio on an iPad, you know.
Wow.
And I'm thinking I have to kind of get over. I love to work organically, you know. I enjoy just the materials here, but you know, like I could be way more efficient, produce much more work. I could combine my music with this. I could be making video. I mean, I could be just an absolute freaking gargantuan if I. But then that brings back the topic of having the time to do it too. You know, like what we need are patrons. You know, we need patrons of the arts, people that recognize that this is a culture war, this is a narrative war, and the sooner whoever the patron class is of our culture, our politics, the sooner that they jump in on that and take control of that or get behind that, the sooner we can start producing arts and entertainment that will recapture the hearts and minds of our people. I'd say of all times right now, the Overton window is really moving in our favor. So it's really, it's one of those things. But what are some of the themes of our show today?
Well, we wanted to touch base on some of the chats from last week that we were going to touch on. Obviously, I was going to talk in a bit more in detail in Eastern Orthodox, but
okay.
It's all right. I've made a few points on that. We wanted to talk about the alt-right Twitter accounts that are back, and with Elon Musk, and sort of have a little back and forth about whether Elon's our guy or not. There's the anti-Semitism laws, which are being enforced, and we know that has a lot of implications as well. I know that even the Bible, especially the New Testament, is being thrown into question as to whether that's regarded as anti-Semitic. And then just talk about just multiculturalism in general and how it's panned out so far and what the intentions were and so on. And then end on introducing next week's theme, which was actually suggested by someone. I forget who his name is exactly. If he's in the chat today, forgive me, but you can claim stake to it. Put your hand up and say you claim it. But it's the Pankration, and I learned of it actually a couple of years ago by doing a podcast with Sven Longshanks, and the history of it was, it's fascinating, really, and it's but essentially a martial arts which originated in ancient Greece. But we'll talk about that a bit more later.
That's so cool, dude. Yeah.
So the alt-right Twitter accounts, then Elon's reinstated them apparently.
Let me kind of chat a bit on that topic. Okay. So the meta cognitive way to look at this is to say, why did Elon bring back the most outspoken anti-Semite just as Congress creates laws outlawing criticism of Israel on college campuses? The timing of that is highly sus, highly sus. And our people know about honeypots. Our people know about the Fed ops. In our sphere, we're aware of that. We know about such things. So there's a type of reticence about it. It's and then more so than that. What was it? On Fuentes' first, what do you call it? Twitter Space. It's like a live audio call-in show. Elon Musk creates a fake account and comes on the show. And
does he really?
With him. Yes. Adrian Dittman is the fake name that he goes by. Dittman. It's a Dittmann, 2 N's, and Adrian, where's that name come from? I don't know, but it's like a brand new account. It's a big like pro Twitter, pro SpaceX type account, and then like he didn't mask his voice at all. Like you'd think he'd put it through some kind of filter to hide who he is. And I mean, you can't deny it's him. It's absolutely him. He's got a very unique kind of autistic way of talking, and the types of things that he says. So a good friend of mine was like, "This is huge. This means Elon is on our side. He's like a secret dissident right guy." And I'm like, yeah, don't count your chickens until they've hatched type thing. Like I want to believe that's true, but I just can't bring myself to. And what do you guys think in the chat? I would love to hear your opinions on the topic. That would be a huge topic to bring up. So, and then there's a guy that anyone who's been in the dissident right for a couple of years should know who Augustus Invictus is. Augustus Invictus was really, really big on the scene during kind of like the Proud Boy days, the Battle of Berkeley.
That's like the ultimate Roman name, isn't it? Augustus Invictus.
Invictus. Yes, I know. He's a very outspoken, openly fascist content creator. Brilliant guy. He's a lawyer.
Okay.
And he got railroaded by the left, by the powers that be. They created false charges against him and put him in jail for like a year.
Okay.
I think it was a year. It could have been longer. I don't quite know. I actually corresponded with him back before that happened, just briefly. Like, he knows who I am, and I've wanted to get him on my show for a long time. It just, our schedules never seem to match up. But we're kind of on the same team in our own way. So, but like when he got out of jail, which the short story is that his court case went back to court and he was found innocent. And the people that railroaded him were kind of exposed in a sense. And so
for doing what they do, really. It's
just... it was a big victory. It was a big victory for him for us to see, like, look, this guy got some justice. He got out. Granted, I mean, he was in freaking jail, taken away from his family, and that's quite bad. So he's kind of reinvented himself just doing lawyer podcasts. It just talks about law. So I had all of that description just to set up the one thing I wanted to say, which is I would look him up on Twitter and or YouTube and listen to his podcast on the new anti-hate speech laws that Congress passed, which are not truly hate speech. It's essentially you can't criticize Israel, and that's like we're heading. This is straight up Bolshevism. This is just straight up history repeating itself kind of crap. And then you've got and someone help me remember his name. Who's the Dilbert cartoonist, the bald guy? He got real popular when he came out against BLM. What's his name?
I know. I mean, he's not a typical sort of right wing guy, is he? He's just someone, a more outspoken leftist that kind of had a race real moment.
Scott Adams. So I don't know that I would call him a leftist, but he's an intellectual. And he's become more right wing the way we all have. And
by default,
he finally saw the truth of everything, and he's like, damn, like shit, like this is not this. So he finally became like the rest of us, like he just finally got red pilled or whatever. Now check this out. So with this new so-called anti-hate speech, he flipped out. There's a clip of him on Twitter going around. He flipped out. I mean, he's cussing his head off, and he's talking about, like, if you want to make me hate the people that you're trying to make me not hate, then this law is doing it. And F the ADL and F Israel, and he just goes ballistic.
Wow.
So it's and I'm telling you, man, all of this indicates that the Overton window is moving to our side, guys.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely I think there's definitely a sense of urgency that they have.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's see something in the chat here. Hippocratic Oath says, I think Dittman is Musk's personal AI. Apparently Dittman and Musk have been on the same stream together before. So like maybe, unless Musk is just talking to himself. Very possible. Very possible. I'm sure they get along very well. He is a clone. My buddy. That's just too funny. This guy is great musician too. Speaking of music, maybe I should pull the guitar out a little later.
Can do if you want. Let me know when, and I'm playing a bit of music in the background on my stream, but I'll stop that when you're ready.
Okay, I want to say hello quickly to a couple new people here. We got Rill, and who else here? We saw someone before. Barry is here, so just saying hi to some new friends.
Howdy.
Please share this show link in your networks. Okay, get us out there. Help us to advertise. To let the community know who we are, what we do. But so what are your thoughts on those things, Mr.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an assertion of power, definitely, and I think the control, I think they're trying to surface now, aren't they? I think they've always had some levels of control in the background, and this isn't just it's kind of like a Zionist type ring of power, isn't it? And it's not just Jews that are involved in the networks of power and secret kind of brotherly groups. It's more secret societies. Yeah, and you've got all your kind of politicians in. You've got your revolving door, and there's a lot of people involved. But you do have the kind of the general ringleaders and
right
and groups, typical players. But yeah, sure. I mean, what to say? I mean, it's kind of expected, and obviously, from a Christian perspective, that they're even going after the New Testament Bible now.
Right. Can you talk about that? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, a lot of Christians, mainstream Christians, Judeo-Christians and whatnot, there's many passages in the Bible which, by today's standards would be classed as anti-Semitic. Simply because a lot of the comments made were to the Jews of that day, the people that
the synagogue of Satan and this kind of
things labels like that, and essentially synagogue of Satan means an assembly of adversaries, and even the Apostle Paul, a little cat jumping on my mic. Anyway, the Apostle Paul, makes comments. Paraphrasing, don't know the exact one, but he says Jews are hostile to all men, and so for a long period of time, the sort of Temple Judaism has kind of I guess had this thing about it whereby people have recognized that it hasn't always been beneficial towards outside groups. So and obviously they was challenged by Christ, and there's things in the Gospel of John that they're trying to do away with, and so I think when you're coming for something like the Bible, it's I think one of the main pillars of the Western culture, which was Christianity, at least in the last 1,000 years. So I think you're ready to the new power paradigm is ready to emerge, isn't it? To take off, to completely do away with the old.
Right. I always say that, or lately I say that, like, the good's getting better and the bad's getting worse. Things are heating up so much. It's crazy. Like, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive, my friends. Yiz says in the chat, I think change is coming. I can feel it building. I think we all do. If you have, any kind of awareness of the zeitgeist, you've got to feel it for sure. Faria says, in labs of future silently grown, a clone emerges known as Musk, alone, electric dreams and Mars, unknown, in him the future seeds are sown. So that
Brilliant.
we have a lot of creative people in our sphere here.
Yeah,
but
good.
yeah, here's an interesting thing though, is how there's something latently anti-Christian. They're going after Christianity. I mean, they've been trying to, they meaning, the left, the establishment, they've been trying to demonize Christian nationalism for quite a while. And I would say there's really, I'd say, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, the average Christian doesn't even know the term Christian nationalism. Like, they're just kind of floating along, just not plugged into politics. But what's your view on that?
Well, my view on that in general is, I think what's going off in general is you had the Reformation of old after the Catholic Church, which essentially had full control over the Gospels and the Bible, and most people were illiterate, and it wasn't translated into English. And when the printing press came, it became mass printed into English, and everyone could understand it and read it. And then they started analyzing it and reflecting on it, and seeing discrepancies between the doctrine and the covenants of the Catholic Church, for example, and so on. I'm not stabbing off at the Catholic Church. I think generally it served a good purpose for the good of Europe in many ways, but there was corruption within the church and practices which I don't think were generally intended to kind of be that way for general society as a whole. But anyway, that aside, so that was you had your Reformation built up, and then that spawned a variety of different denominations and outlooks on the faith. And I think what we're going through now is a sort of second Reformation, whereby we're with technology and understanding. We're coming to read scriptures in the Bible and with other historical evidences and we're able to put the pieces together a bit more from all of my observations and studies. It's completely different to the perspective of scripture that I grew up listening to, and especially the past sort of 100 years or even 50 years, really, with the whole sort of Judeo-Christian evangelical movement, which it is so far removed from the truth, really. When I was brought up, it's like, oh no, this is the kind of the true perspective, and it's like, well, actually, no, that is it's looking at Christianity through a very Jewish lens, and it's almost like perpetuated Zionism and so on, and so what I'm saying is, essentially, we're having another Reformation now, where we can have an understanding. For example, even there's an app called Blue Letter Bible, which is what I use to mostly study, and it's got these interlinear tools where you can. There's what's called a Strong's Concordance, where a guy called Strong's did a reference, a table of reference database, and put a concordance number assigning all of the ancient Greek words in the original script to the English. And so when you do that, you can look at all the corresponding words that are associated with that, and then and you come to realize there are many discrepancies with words as they're scribed. So there's a lot of flaws in the KJV Bible, for example, and how they've rendered the words. And you've had these misconceptions creep in and so on, like a social layer of understanding has changed, and so our lens of how we perceive the Bible and scriptures has been distorted. For example, the word Jew, we come to know it today as anyone who is an Israelite, anyone who is from Israel, descended, like an ethnic group. But that's not what it means. For one, it's rooted in Judean, which is someone from that province, which was a Roman province, a Judean. And then when you correct one word, suddenly it changes the dynamic of other things and other relationships. And so the whole thing starts to be thrown into question. And that was really where the beginnings of my my research took me before. But not to go down that rabbit hole now, but the ultimate point is, I believe that we are having a sort of another final reformation understanding. And you are getting Christian nationalism emerging out of that. And obviously I think the next step for Christian nationalists to understand the history behind the true people of the book, and that's my personal kind of understanding.
Your audio is starting to get crunchy on my end. I don't know, you guys in my audience, can you hear Paul okay, or is it getting a little funky dunky? Sometimes we get these weird little glitchy things.
You did put your thing on, didn't you?
There's a lot of anti-white internet gremlins out there. Sabotaging our streams here. Now we got like echoes and things, but usually just kind of wait it out and it goes away. How's my voice coming across?
Yeah, you okay? It's a little bit fractured, but
Yeah. We're going through another dimensional shift right now. That's what it is. There you go. I'm going to look at the chat. I don't think Christian nationalism is going to ever be a thing, says Yiz. And let's read on. She says, I think nationalism in many areas will be heavily Christian, but I don't think we'll see Christian nationalism become a thing. So this is a valid point. I think it's rational to say that. I would add, though, that our Mr. Nick Fuentes is a massive proponent of Christian nationalism, as is Andrew Torba of Gab.com. So whatever that means, I mean, that would be a whole big rabbit hole to go down. It'd be a really interesting and important discussion. I'm all about our people. I'm not, I don't personally see that so much as a religious question, but rather as a national question, a question of how do we win, and can and should that energy be harnessed? And I would say yes. I feel that you can't. I just don't think you can deny the Christian roots of Western civilization, regardless of what your stance is on the topic. And if you're like I know there's a lot of people out there that are against it and are trying to kind of like come up with a different way or something. And I'm not getting into that bog. I think that's a big can of worms. I know my own views on the topic, but I'm more interested in framing the discussion in terms of, well, how can we win? How can we use this energy or this trajectory to win? You know what I'm saying? Because when I say win, I partially I mean like, racially awakening more of our people. And because the more that we're all on our own side, and some people would argue maybe, well, the whole turn the other cheek thing and all this kind of like Christianity is very passive, There's lots of arguments to be made and stuff, but I still think it's a important discussion, We'll see how it goes, but somehow or other, it's something that is happening. It is a type of phenomenon. Barry Balaclava says in my chat, more leftists know the term Christian nationalism or nationalists than right-wingers. See, there you are. This is what I was saying about they're marketing the concept to the left. They're trying to target the rise of Christian nationalism, a threat to our democracy. That whole
democracy
thing. I should work for CNN. You hear the voice I got there? The issue with Christian nationalism is it usually distracts from race, especially in mainstream politics. I totally agree. Hippocratic Oath says BB needs Christian nationalism. 61% of Jews wanted to leave Israel before the war. He needs Nick Fuentes et al. To drive his people back to Israel. See, now this is getting into the minutia, or not the minutia, but like the mechanisms of like, why is Nick Fuentes coming back on Twitter now? You see what I mean? That's the topic that I brought up earlier. sort of floating around a bit here. Let's see. Barry says, I get what you're saying. The Schofield Bible was very manipulative to American politics and problematic. So the Schofield Bible, for those who don't know, is a Bible that was edited by Jews to place Jews in a kind of an untouchable, sacred place in Christians' mind. And whereas, like Paul, I think you could probably expand on how false that is. I don't know if you can go into that at all.
Yeah, well, I think this is it's about timing as well. I mean, Schofield was a I'm not sure if he was Jew himself, but I know he's definitely affiliated with Jews who helped push it. So I think they were the kind of the power force behind it, with obviously putting a lot of money to Schofield and his kind of side notes within the Bibles, and they helped to shape people's reading and understanding. And so when that became widespreadly published, because it was I think it was one of the first kind of Bibles with footnotes and things, and so people started learning. And then you cuff a link with from the 80s, the God Channel and so on, and then Christian evangelism really just takes off, and especially off the back of the idea of the returning of 1948 and so on. There's a whole host of doctrines which have kind of come together to essentially fortify Zionism, to really play a role in perpetuating Zionism.
To make Christians Zionist, essentially.
Exactly.
A really, really important point to make here about the Schofield Bible is that is the Bible that was put in every hotel room and motel room across America since the 1940s or 50s when it first came out. And so that just became, it just sort of absorbed into the American cultural mind, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
And think about that, though. It's like that, okay, what we're going to just slip it into this, into these locations, and then over time it'll but they also paid preachers specifically to use it in the South, in like the Bible Belt and such.
Okay.
So there's definitely an agenda at hand there. It's worth looking up. I would say people should look it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back 200 years ago, for example, no one saw the Jews as the people of Israel. It just they didn't see it like that. They weren't regarded as all of Israel in general. It's with a culmination of things coming together that have all fortified this narrative, and it's essentially created this kind of framework of dogma that has caught wind and been perpetuated. I mean, just like you I think one thing COVID did was really show people how easy and gullible people can be, and how an idea or a belief system can be implemented. And that's in a short space of time. Imagine something which took root and has been shaped over generations,
centuries. Centuries, right?
And that's what I'm saying. When the truth comes out eventually, and when people have access to the internet and can do their own research and have tools to actually study the Bible in a way which is really in depth and down to the core of the original scripts, and see inconsistencies and fallacies, and then start questioning, talking, and it's like the framework starts to crumble, and I think that's lending to the desperation of the power plays that are taking place in order to maintain a grip on the control, because it clearly is kind of being lost or being questioned.
This is an excellent commentary on the topic. Yeah. So, I mean, just on Twitter today, I saw news clips of the ADL and related people in that sphere talking about how they're losing control of the narrative. I mean, they're openly talking about it. They're saying, that when all the Holocaust survivors die, then who's going to be around to tell anybody about what happened? And they're like this, and like openly saying things like, when people don't believe in the Holocaust anymore, then we'll lose our power, we will lose our standing, and so we have to, like, our power hinges on that.
Who said that?
That's Say again.
Who said that?
That was Jonathan Greenblatt from ADL. He runs the ADL.
You see, that's the thing, though. Like, truth should speak for itself. I don't think you should really need laws in play to perpetuate truth. Okay. If something is so strong and rooted in truth, then it will stand on its own feet. And
all right. So Scott Adams, the cartoonist I was referring to earlier, he's very, very rational. He's like super rational. And here's a guy that's essentially proving that, like, if you force me to not to sort of like these people or to not criticize them, you're going to have the exact opposite effect. You're going to make me hate them. That to make it so that it's illegal to criticize any group is massively un-American and just against logic in general. So I think that to any thinking human being, it's pretty freaking obvious that every time they make a move like this, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're making it harder for themselves. They're digging the hole deeper, that they're already in. And I just I feel like the truth eventually has to come out. So how it all works, but there you go.
Yeah, no, I think we all do. I mean, I saw today a clip of Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how there's so much blatant anti-Semitism coming out now, and it's like, well, what regards as anti-Semitism? Is it questioning behaviors of a certain group of people that seem to be commonly talked about? I mean, how many people are coming to the same conclusions? Or say, for example, if there's a group of people that have managed to piss off the left, the right, a whole group of a religious movement across the world, it's like, I mean, any normal person would think, well, hold on, what is going on here for all of these groups that don't really have that much in common themselves to all agree on this, this one thing? Yeah. So what is it? I mean, that would be your kind of logical explanation. And even if he was in a playground fight, you would, address the situation. You say, okay, what's going on? What's the common denominator here? Okay, so what's going on? Let's examine the behavior. But no, you can't examine the behavior. You're just gonna put up a law to say to people, you continue down this path. Don't question this this group, or there's going to be repercussions.
So, I mean, it stands for itself. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yiz is making a very special comment here. I'm vibing with this. I think the racial war we're in is also spiritual religious. And I think whatever comes in the next few years will show us what the teams will be. I guess this is one of those times where you want to point out the difference between spiritual and religious as things. I would say in this particular case with this so-called race war, religion is more the like my team versus your team. It's not religion in the sense of like, okay, this is a structure, an institution that helps people to practice a spirituality. You know what I mean? So it's that type of situation because of the politics that we're going through. Imperial Crusader says the Scofield Bible and dispensationalism has been bad for American Christianity. 100%. Yiz says, I understand a desire to have Christian nationalism, and I'm sympathetic. Me too, Yiz. But unless there is a major change in what Christianity is to people, it can't be a source of nationalism. Paul, I think that's where you could probably make some intelligent commentary.
I don't quite know what he means by what it is. I mean, because I judge Christianity through a different lens to what most mainstream people do, like Judeo-Christians, for example. I think the core of mainstream Christian understanding is very different. I mean, the principles are the same in terms of the commandments and how you should act with people and so on. I mean, there's a moral framework which that's I think that's strong. That's embedded in our laws, for example. But I mean, most pagans, for example, would say that it is typically not a European book, and the origins may not have started typically in Europe, but the origins of the people, I believe, were kindred. So
Yes.
it's as people's migrated outwards, is where the separation came, and then the book followed them later. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think this is a perfect segue to talk about Aryan Israelitism, if that's the word. What's the proper term that I'm looking for here?
Well, you could say, I would say just sort of true Israel, true people of the book. And
okay, so what? Just to clue in the audience, Patriotic Art
it's basically understanding the framework of the Bible in its true understanding of the punishments, the dispersions of the group of people, Israel, and what transpired over time, and then through the new covenant, which was adopted by the same people that were scattered and dispersed, and essentially put into this this punishment for breaking the old covenant and pulling away from that, and that was essentially the fulfillment over time that would be brought about through the new covenant, which is why the apostles essentially went to the people that they did, and they went to a specific people. The term Gentiles, for example, a massive misconception there. When you look at Roman law and understand what a Gentile is, a Gentile is a member of the same familia, a same family, but it's like not your brother or sister, but your cousin, type thing.
Okay.
Right. But that's in a broader sense. It's not your direct family. So, but it's an extended group that is outside of your household. And so, what a Gentiles was in Roman law, if you had property and your brother died, it might go to someone else like your uncle, but he wasn't part of your town or your direct family unit, but he was regarded as a Gentile. He was the extended family. So that's how the word was always used in ancient Rome, Gentile. It's member of the same family. And for some reason, it's been completely inverted in our understanding as anyone who isn't from this group of people. Now, how it's a complete social construct that has been glossed over the original meaning of the word. And another point to be made is that the word Gentile is a Latin word that wasn't even included in the Latin Vulgate. So it was only added in the 15th century, which, why would it be added in the 15th century? The root word behind it is ethnos, which is essentially nations. So the nations were the nations of the kind of diaspora that were built up over millennia, going back from the ancient Grecian colonies through to the Carthaginian and so on, trade routes of the Phoenicians, which spread across Mediterranean up into the British Isles during the tin trades. And these kind of migrations that really heavily influenced the populace of Europe, and then the other populations, the other migration paths from the Cimmerians, who some would regard as not part of the same branch, but when you study in line with the Bible, that they were Israelites that settled in the Medes. They were dispersed under the Syrian Empire, and from there they collectively migrated out and towards Galatia, and then there was the Celtic connection, which then spread across through Europe, the Danube River, and so on. And over time, these populations grew and grew and grew and became nations, which were essentially the nations of the Israel diaspora. and there would be some intermixings with some of the native nations, but when you trace our languages back, it's all fully rooted in people and groups that have come from that region, whether it's Rome, Greece, Levant, and so on, ancient Iran, Mesopotamia. Our roots are there, and we are Europeans now, of course, but we didn't always start out in Europe, and so that's essentially the reason why the Gospels predominantly became European, and Europe essentially held the banner for Christ. And although there was lots of wars and small scale kind of disputes, most of the European nations adopted the new covenant, which was under Christ. And that essentially is the fulfillment of the biblical narrative when you really look at it. And what's being portrayed now is categorically false, because well, and then you look at the history of the Jews, for example, in their own encyclopedia, the Jewish encyclopedia, they talk about an amalgamated people with Edom, who was essentially a kind of a villainous character in the Bible, who would go on to be an eternal enemy of Israel. That's how it's portrayed in Scripture, and so you have this kind of battle that's been going off for millennia, and as it seems to me that there is an identity being usurped, and and until I think Europe wakes up to recognize themselves as being central to that book and not the Jews, as they are today. The Jews are an amalgamated people, and I think until that happens, I think we'll always be at the behest of that group.
It's very complex stuff. You and I have discussed it a good bit, and I know that there's a lot of resources for people to understand how archaeology, history, and the Bible come together on this topic. It's over my head as far as I don't have the knowledge to be able to talk about it intelligently like you do. I enjoy listening, and I appreciate learning about it, of course. And it seems to me that if there ever is to be a Christian nationalism, that if Christians realize that Aryans are the true Israelites, that would supercharge the movement. So how that can happen, I don't know. Who's the one to make that happen? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Yeah, I think it will happen itself over time.
Okay.
I think you'll have internal conflict within nations. You'll have racial divisions, and I think when whites realize that they need to kind of work together to survive, I think it will be then when because there's always going to be this hatred pushed towards white people. I think just for the nature of suppression, to perpetuate the globalist narrative and power structure. So yeah, and I think it's under that pressure that that we will be refined.
I guess we can sort of only pontificate or guess, and gesture
you can only speculate, but that's where I see the lines converging anyway. It's either that or the global beast system will have us in play and have chips in our heads and hands, and there might be a group which kind of break off. You could have a schism in society. Have you seen Demolition Man?
That's a movie, am I right? The old It's a kind of
you have these guys which are forced underground into the sewers.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
Quite funny.
Who's the actor in there? What's his
I'm pretty
Stallone,
sure
right?
it's Stallone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a comedy, a futuristic comedy, which is not very common, but unless you're thinking Spaceballs or something like that. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. So what were some of our other topics, though? I mean, the state surveillance.
We've got a few things. What else was there? So yeah, we've touched on anti-Semitism laws. We've touched on right-wing accounts. Just another point on that, really. I'm not going to do too much more on this artwork. It's a relative finish. But yeah, I heard it said that people like Mark Collett should try and get his account reinstated. And I kind of tend to agree, but the difference is the people that are active in real life don't tend to get reinstated. I wonder if there's a coincidence there, you know,
That's interesting.
It's only people that are kind of online and their impact will only stretch so far.
That's a very interesting point, because it seems to indicate, like, yeah, just stay online, don't organize, don't do anything in real life, don't get people together, don't actually have any real impact beyond like the virtual sphere. So I mean, one could kind of chat about that, wonder about that, but the big push that I'm aware of right now is to get Jared Taylor back on.
Oh yeah, he's I really like him. He's got a certain voice, hasn't he, which is really kind of easy to listen to, I find.
Yeah, I think of him as the father of us all. I mean, just like to look at what he's accomplished with American Renaissance. I'll put it this way: when I started getting race pilled, if you will, he was the guy that I went to for my information, because I thought, like, okay, there's a lot of big mouths out there. There's a lot of people that like spit out kind of like racist humor and various stuff that I'm like, okay, you're making reference to all kinds of information I don't really know yet. So, and this is real spicy. I got to get my bearings here. I want to know what's going on. And, through watching Richard Spencer on American Renaissance, then I realized, oh, there's this like race realist conference every year. Holy cow. And I pretty much watched every single episode of those speeches, really? From like I don't know, I think it started in like 1990 or something. And that is a hell of an education. If everybody was made to sit down and go through all of it like I did, you would freaking get it, like you would get it. And like, so that's how I realized, like, oh my God, like, wow, like I've been lied to history. You just got white pilled, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and what I love about him is that he's so highly educated. He comes from a different time, a different generation. He's
like the ultimate boomer that you wish you had lived growing up with,
Oh, totally, dude. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but he grew up in Japan up until
no, I know that.
16, speaks Japanese and French fluently. And now, me being a guy who, lived in Asia for 5 years, and I have that whole thing, I think I'm one of the few people that can kind of relate to this idea that when you are a white man in Asia, your identity is very punctuated. It's like really, really, really punctuated. And you get a strong sense of yourself that people cannot have unless they're outside of their cultural context. And Japan's a good one too, because they are very traditional. They really, and there's all the systems are where they need to be. They have all the things that we need. By the way, the powers that be are now forcing Japan to accept immigrants now. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Is it North or South Korea are taking migrants as well to affix their sort of dwindling population. They've had to You know, instead of putting through some legislation or some policies in the government to reward couples for having, 4 or 5 kids, and you
Right,
know
right, right,
just logical things to incentivize population
right.
growth. No, let's
Like,
import contrary cultures and peoples that
right,
are less
right.
likely to get along in the society that
Mm-hmm.
we've
Mm-hmm.
together kind of become accustomed with and learned and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
adapted to, and completely contrary people are going to somehow get along just fine and everyone's going to live in harmony. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so
It's
stupid and nonsensical to believe that it's kind
right,
of
right.
it's possible without sort of intense problems and teething problems, that
Yeah.
you have to assume that is intentional in order to
Mm-hmm.
bring a
Oh
society
yeah,
to its knees.
100%, 100%. So let me tell you something insane. I saw an interview with, and I don't know what this is called. He's basically the head of the Department of Economics in Japan. I don't know the dude's name or anything. The interview was in Japanese, but it had English subtitles, and he was saying that what was the situation? The World Economic Forum
Mm-hmm.
came to him saying, "You are going to have to open up economically. We're starting a new world order economy, and Japan has got to get on board with it." And this guy's like, "No, no freaking way. We're not doing that." And then he was told, and he said this clearly in the interview, he was told, "If you don't do this, we have weapons that will cause earthquakes in Japan."
Yeah, wow, I heard
And
that.
then shortly after that, there was a giant earthquake somewhere in Japan, and he signed the paper.
Wow, was that
He was
what was it called? What was that? There was a tsunami in somewhere growing up here. I
so
think maybe in the
I
90s or early 2000s.
well, this wasn't terribly long ago. This was probably
Okay.
within the past like 2 years that this happened.
Wow.
But I mean, I really should save that clip, because that's a hell of a thing to see him say, like, we're openly being threatened, that the New
Oh yeah,
World
of
Order
course.
has these weapons, and anyone who's in the know, that we already know, that they're creating superstorms, they're cloud seeding, they're chemtrails, like
Yeah,
the
that's the
whole
point. Maybe a
thing.
hot topic we should have thought to discuss is the lights, the northern lights, and so I know I've seen people talking about
Oh,
it, and
that's a
I,
different subject. I can talk about that actually.
yeah, well, let me just
All right.
say, I mean, I've, it would have been nice to see them for a start, but yeah, I kind of learned mostly from just people posting loads of videos and that, and
Yeah.
not questioning it at all. But yeah, what's your understanding of it all?
So, according to my resources, and they're not my resources, that's just the wrong way to frame that. That according to resources on solar weather, or cosmic weather, if you will, the sun is going through a phase where it is heating up, and this has happened many, many, many times in Earth's history. There's a geological record of times when the sun heats up, and what that does. So what's happening is it's creating gigantic electromagnetic storms. That so, for example, if you had, like, let's say you were a welder, and you know how they wear a welding mask, and it's got a
Mm-hmm.
really, really dark screen on it, because they're looking at a super hot bright light in order to do their welding, right? And they can't blind themselves, except they wear a very dark thing. If you take one of those and hold it up to the sun, you will see the sun burst, like these huge random bursts of light, like immense, incredible light. And then what that is those are the waves of electromagnetic energy hitting the earth. And
Right.
so there's also a kind of like a seismic chart that you can look up that shows the different levels of electromagnetic energy hitting the earth. And in the past month or two, they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and like we're in the thick of it right now.
Okay.
So the
Do you think that
that
has
is
anything to do with the eclipse?
The eclipse is in itself, it's just a type of it comes around every so many years, and it's just a normal thing in and of itself. But having the eclipse with these solar storms is something I don't know that's ever happened in Earth's history, and one has to question, like, what sort of effects is this having? Now, I don't talk about this in depth on like shows like this, but on my on my my art streams, I do talk about very esoteric things. I talk about UFOs, various things of this nature, Vril, all that kind of stuff, all that goodies that I love.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in the UFO community, there's a lot of talk about the significance of these electromagnetic storms. And they're essentially saying that they are triggering human evolution, that they're pushing us forward in an evolutionary form. Because on an energetic level, human beings we're not just chunks of meat.
Of course.
We're conscious living energy beings, and the it's sort of like, I don't know, like what gas is to a car per se. I mean, you have to stop seeing reality through the physical lens and see it through an energetic lens. In quantum physics, we talk about particles versus waves. So if all matter is made up of particles or waves, then what does that mean? Okay, it's like, this is, anyway, quantum science. So what we've discovered is that consciousness can change the behavior of these particles into waves, and that everything is harmonic, everything is vibration. Even the government, the CIA, has documentation on the use of I don't really know what to call it, just the harnessing of vibrations and resonances for various reasons. There's like cancer curing machines that Tesla made that use reverberations, and there's just so much about this type of science that is closed off to the public because there would be no medical industry. They want to have all the power, as usual. It's the usual shit. So wow. I mean, I'll tell you, during the during the eclipse, I had the day off. Actually, I took the day off, and I stayed home and I meditated through the eclipse. And people know I do qigong, which is, again, that's a kind of Chinese yoga. It's an energetic type of yoga. And during the peak of the eclipse, I had one of the strangest experiences of my life, and I'll never forget it. Again, I knew I had been researching this, and I knew it was coming, and so I just worked on, like, okay, I'm going to get myself all hooked up in terms of my, getting, in a really good state with the qigong. I'm going to have a very strong spiritual resonance in terms of my heart and my intention and so forth. And then I'm going to ride it out during the peak of the eclipse. So when that happened and everything went dark and you had that, 3-minute period in the peak of the eclipse, I had these experiences that the only way I could describe them is as if I was shifting through different dimensions. Like the physical, mental, emotional, energetic realities were there's no way to describe this feeling. Were kind of like, it's like if you were watching a movie and there was a lot of fast jump cuts, where it's a click, like cut, and I could feel these dimensions. I don't know what else to call them but dimensions, because they were not the same reality as the reality that I normally live in. They were just kind of like I was in all these different realities in a kind of a quick succession of time, and then it stopped. and it was jarring. It was very jarring.
But what was your experience in between those moments? Like, where, like, were the visions? Were they,
okay, so try to imagine for a moment, like, remember when you were, say, 4 years old, and the feeling of reality through your senses at that time is very different from the feeling of reality right now. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, your brain was in a different state of, like, growth, and
so
your
a view on the world.
Yeah, that's I guess that's the best way I can describe it, because there's no way to actually describe it.
Okay.
It was sort of both physical and mental. So it was like a perception. Well, I shouldn't say perception. It's just so hard to explain. I just don't really have the language to explain it. That's kind of the best I can do, and it's not really describing it properly, but it was almost dizzying, like it made me slightly dizzy in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it wasn't like vertigo or something, but it was, I guess, like if you've ever been in a movie and you've had a kinesthetic experience. You know what kinesthesia is? Let's say you're sitting in the theater and you're in the point of view of a roller coaster, and the roller coaster goes like that, and you physically feel it in your gut, even though you're sitting in a chair. So there was a kind of kinesthetic experience of these sort of quick dimension shifts, and I don't know if they were dimensions. I don't know that. I'm only saying that because it wasn't the same reality, I guess. So I don't know what else I would call it. Yeah, I guess possible realities, because in quantum physics they say that, like, all realities exist simultaneously in the here and now, and that when you make a quantum jump per se, you're just switching into another dimension that currently exists now here. And it's like, again, like, if you do research on these topics, these are the ideas that are out there. I didn't invent these ideas. I'm just kind of passing on what I'm hearing, what I know, and trying to navigate this experience. I would definitely say that my life in general has improved a lot since that event. I've improved a lot since that event. I have, like, extreme synchronicity in my life. Like it's way more than it used to be, and I already had a lot of synchronicity. So if you can combine prayer, mantra, meditation, energy work together, you can have very, very profound spiritual experiences. And I hate talking like this because I don't want to make myself look like I'm some guru or some enlightened guy. I'm not.
You're going to be selling tickets soon, aren't you? Like to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yes, I've got this wonderful Kool-Aid for everyone. Line up on the left. No, but that's crazy. But yeah, anyway, it's a good thing, It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. That's good to well, it's self-expression, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I lived in Japan for a year, and so it's like, okay, what was that like? Well, shit, how do I explain that? If you don't go and do it yourself, then and even your experience of it would be different from mine, because we're different people. You know what I mean? So it's hard to describe experiences quite perfectly, but anyway, there you go.
Yes.
Anyway.
How's your piece? Do you want to talk through your piece a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
It's quite out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely sci-fi-ish. I've been noticing my work throughout this program has this very kind of movie poster kind of, there's certain iconography, and it's not like a landscape or a still life. You know what I'm saying? It's meant to be concept art per se. It's meant to, say something directly to the audience. I don't know if that's tacky, if that's like a bad thing to do. I mean, I don't like being vague. I mean, vague is good in some types of art, you know, in the sense of like leaving kind of openly, let's see, morally ambiguous questions that you might see in a film, or blah blah blah, stuff like this. So I mean, I try to give enough information that people can put it together, but then at the same time don't hit people over the head. I think this hits you over the head a little bit. So
it's definitely interesting. I didn't an interesting image. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, in terms of the whole extraterrestrial stuff and aliens stuff, I mean, it's interesting, and there are even certain there's even, you know, certain doctrinal grounds for extraterrestrials within the biblical perspective, with the Anunnaki and stuff, and
absolutely, yeah. Book of Enoch is huge.
Book of Enoch, and you know, there's the Epic of Gilgamesh and so
Big
on.
time.
That
Yeah.
So there's parallels there with the beginning of creation and mankind and so on, and you know, and other beings being in and around us, you know, whether it's interdimensional or whatever, it's highly plausible, really. I mean, I think we have a certain level of, or a certain kind of perspective of how we see things, and even, you know, even demons could be maybe extraterrestrial in some way. I don't know.
Or see, the thing to start wrapping our heads around is the idea of interdimensional.
Yeah.
So extraterrestrial is just not from Earth, but if you're really deep into UFO studies, the thing that people talk more about is interdimensional, and that I again, it's like I don't have a college degree in this stuff, so it's like maybe I can only, like, you know, remotely kind of talk about these things, but it's like, for example, the Greys are said to be us from another dimension, and that they you know, there was cataclysm in their world, and they had to go underground, and they evolved into these kind of bugmen, and they lost their ability to reproduce, so they're here to harvest our DNA. And, you know, but there's also a question, like, do they even have souls? There's some kinds of Greys that are like biological robots created by higher intelligent Greys.
What about the Nordic aliens then? What's your knowledge of them?
Well, that's wholly different. That's totally different. So you have like Aldebaran, Pleiades. There's a number of groups out there that are essentially like white aliens. You know, it's, to me, I'm like, in our movement, why is it that we're not talking about that? You know, why are we not connecting our race to their race? And like, how is that not a thing? Like, why aren't people excited about that? You know? So there's a case, a gentleman named Billy Meyer, he's from one of the Nordic countries. I don't know if it's Denmark or Sweden, somewhere. I apologize, I can't say, but he this is in I'd say the 70s. He had frequent visits from Pleiadians, apparently, and he has lots and lots of like VHS type video of their ships, and some, you know, lots and lots of books and stuff on, you know, the messages that they were giving him. And so the question always remains, well, like, why don't you just freaking show up? Like, why is it always so ambiguous? Why can't we just see you and like interact with you and these things? And one of the explanations that I recently heard that I find interesting is that it's said that these beings are way more evolved than us, and they actually exist on like a higher energetic spectrum. So what was I talking about earlier with Qigong? It's that we are energy beings, and that there's cases of people who have been abducted and such, or and to be around these other beings, it's very uncomfortable for us physically, because their energy is too high for us to be around. So I don't know if that's true, but that's what I hear, and I'm always just a guy that is passing on information. This is what I read. This is what there's people
It
that have
depends.
talked about
I mean, if we're around people with high energy of our own people, I mean, that tends to be what's the word I'm looking for? Contagious. When someone's kind of happy and upbeat and.
Yeah, I'm really talking more about actual energy, like a different type of dimension.
Right. Okay.
That like it's just too strong. Again, I don't want to come off like I'm trying to sell these ideas to people. These are just the things that I research and I find interesting.
It's all interesting. I used to watch Ancient Aliens and stuff, and that's probably like, you probably look at that and think that's you probably look and think that's like.
No, I mean everything mainstream is mainstream. You know what I'm saying? So like, because it's in the mainstream, you can be pretty sure that there's some nefarious agenda there. So the way it works is that they'll tell you 80% truth and 20% lies.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Because like, why does that program even exist? Like, how is it able?
That guy with the funky hair, like, how did he ever get on show?
How does he get his hair to stand up like that?
That was impressive.
He's got to have
I think he saw an alien. He must have seen something.
He got so spooked that his hair never went down. He's got an anti-gravity machine attached to his hair that like makes it stand up like that.
Yeah.
No, he's fun. Eric von Daniken is one of the kind of like the fathers of ancient alien research. He's this brilliant Austrian guy who he's the guy that literally went to the different countries and did the actual footwork on finding out the history of all these unexplained not monuments, but like ruins that there's no way humans could have created these things. And there's just so much science to it that is baffling, absolutely baffling. And so I think he even coined the term ancient aliens, actually.
Right.
He's a good guy to look
up. It's all interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
It's all interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like to listen to a lot of different debate. I think it's important to be open-minded enough to engage in dialogue and understand, try and understand people's different perspectives, just out of curiosity alone. And if something sticks, and I think that's how you build a framework of kind of, not just rationality, but it's the building blocks of kind of, truth, isn't it? And legitimate understanding. It's like, okay, well, that kind of sticks. That kind of sticks. I'm not sure about that.
So the point, if I'm not interrupting you, the point I'm trying to get at here is that the reason why I created this creature as the symbol of the surveillance state is because on a deeper level, it's believed, or it's said, that the entire New World Order is in service of darker entities, and that are they demonic, are they alien, are they both, it kind of, there's a bit of a Gnostic angle here as well, that the idea of enslaving humanity by merging it with technology is a type of do you know what Ahriman is? Do you know about Ahriman?
Ahriman, it sounds familiar.
What's his name? Just slipped my mind. I'm sure someone in the chat can. Oh shit, what's his name? Spengler. What's Spengler's first name? He's one of the big philosophers in our sphere. I'm 99% sure most people watching this show would know who Spengler is. And he talks about Rudolf Spengler. Thank you, Hippocratic Oath. He talks about Ahriman and essentially these kind of like, for lack of a better term, like a demonic alien force being that is about it's sort of like the nature of materialism in this world. It's the force of that is a kind of like godlike consciousness that influences humanity. And like if you look at how, you know, the whole of human history and then the Industrial Revolution, and then zoom, look at how like everything's sped up like insanely, and it's getting faster and faster and faster. Why did that happen? How did that happen? So it's Spengler's this great philosopher who, you know, has this idea about this being called Ahriman who, you know, is a demonic force influencing humanity towards these, and all of it is systems of control. So, you know, man in nature is free, indigenous and free. But man through industrialization becomes a kind of economic slave. And all of this goes on Oswald Spengler and Rudolf Steiner. I screwed these things up. I do that all the time. Anyway, I think I'm actually talking about Steiner and not Spengler. Spengler is a different guy, so I apologize for that. This is my one Achilles heel, is like I know the ideas, but I can't reference the guys that created the ideas. Have you noticed that? I'm gonna have a cheat sheet list of, like, you know, Spengler.
No, I know what you mean. Sometimes
Spencer,
I get like
whoever. Anyway,
it's what you pay attention to. Like, I used to think I had a really bad memory, but I don't believe that I do. I just have attention deficit a lot of the time. Like, I actually have a really good memory. When I'm focused on something and I'm 100% there in the moment, it will sink in and it'll stay with me for life.
Right.
You know, it's if I'm not focused and my mind's fleeting between lots of different things, which I tend to do, it just won't register. So it's not really like bad memory. It's just focus.
I get it. There's a certain talent for remembering names and dates. Like, I was listening to.
I think you have to just be conscious. You have to be like, there, right? Okay, what is this? And then repeat it, and maybe assign a visual cue or something.
Yes. I think if I'm going to be doing shows, I should learn that skill. I was just watching one of those famous Jared Taylor interviews where he's, you know, there was some Indian, like East Indian American woman who was trying to, like, you know, do like a gotcha interview on him, and he like destroys her. It's a really, really famous interview. I'm sure most of you guys have seen it. And everything she comes up with, she uses all these stupid democratic liberal talking points about, you know, America is based on immigration and and America is just an idea. You know, you're not even a person, you're just an idea. And he destroys her. He freaking destroys her, like, over and over. And he's like, names, dates, policies, names, dates, books. Facts. He just at the end of the interview, she finally gives up, and she's like, I think I've taken enough of your time, Mr. Jared Taylor. You know, like just crawls into a hole. Go back to the hole you came from.
Yeah, the certain people, especially the left, don't really deal with facts. They just
no.
And it's funny is they'll try and state facts when it's convenient for them, but their facts are usually kind of rooted in some propaganda fueled or you know, divisive, could have devised motive. You know.
Yes. It is what it is. So, just to clarify, I was referring to Rudolf Steiner, not to Oswald Spengler. And thank you to the people in the chat for doing that. Sorry for my mistaking that. But anyway, there it is, and there you go. So, yeah, I mean, there's still a ways to go with this piece here, but I feel like it's coming together. The feeling of it, the concept. The whole thing is coming together nicely.
No, I like it. I mean, you could call it finished. I think it'll be nice to see more defined kind of finish on the backdrop.
big time.
I like the, yeah, like you say, your compositions are always very movie poster. You could easily slap on some text, couldn't you? And and say coming soon.
Coming
Who's
soon
it starring?
to a theater near you.
Tom Hardy
Harryman.
stars in.
Yes, written by Rudolph Spengler Oswald.
Well, we got to think of a title. Does anyone in the title think of a movie for this?
Starring
Globo Novo.
Yeah. Starring Keanu Reeves. Anyway, so I think this
we're coming up to an hour and a half, aren't we? Yeah, it's been a nice show back.
Indeed.
So yeah, I think we're both done for today. My piece is finished. We've got the got the cat pulling on my cord. Yeah, so there we are. We are. It's okay to be white, and this is the what was it? Surveillance state.
Yeah.
There we are. Yeah. Interesting to see how things pan out. But next show, just quickly talk on next week's show. We're going to be doing Pankration. It's a martial art which was originated in ancient Greece, and we're going to talk about just that in general. We're going to do a really cool piece, maybe some kind of fighting or some moves or whatever. Just be a bit more lighthearted to some of the stuff we normally do. And be interesting to learn a bit of history about our people and maybe how that martial art in particular helped to influence other surrounding nations and even the sort of more Asian type martial arts, which I think it did have a big impact on, which you'll be surprised to know.
Well, I'm going sparring this evening, so I'm
really
back to sparring.
awesome. Yeah, I really miss sparring. I do. It's it's like a physical chess match, you know. When you connect flush,
Yeah, dude. I mean, last week was 2 hours straight of sparring. I have a really good partner too. He's very good. Like he's not easy to defeat, so that's what I need, you know. And I get new friends in on it as well, so it's, you know, getting back in shape with that. So anyway, awesome. God bless you guys. It was a really fun stream. I love all my friends that come to the chat. God bless you. Be sure to follow Yiz the Eunuch. She's got great shows. Anybody else, if you have things you want to promote or whatever, you can throw some links in the chat. But Paul, Patri.Art, you're the best. I'm so happy we're back. I'm out of YouTube jail, and we can get back to our usual schedule.
Yes. All right. Thanks, guys. And we'll be back next week. Same time, 6 p.m. GMT, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Take care. God bless. And stay positive.
Okay. Bye-bye.